trip with the youth to South Dakota. And also we should make a note, next week we'll be meeting at the Center Congregational Church in Brattleboro for the last of the union services of the summer. So spread the word. If you know people that might be wanting to come to church, they won't find anything here if they come here. So direct them to Center Church. The following Sunday, the Reverend Philip Wilson will be leading the service. He's quite involved with the Episcopal Church, St. Michael's Episcopal Church, but he loves coming here as well, and you'll probably recognize him as a congregant occasionally, but he'll be leading on September 3rd. Lisa will be back in the pulpit on the following Sunday, which is also beginning of Sunday school. So, and the church barbecue. Thank you, Lucy. So, lots coming down the pike. This morning, we're pleased that Brian Reamer, longtime member of the church and former lay leader, will be leading the service. And thank you again to Brian for doing that. Coffee hour downstairs afterwards will be for fellowship time. Yes, Patty. Oh, are you both together, or do you have something separate? Okay. Let's see. And other announcements. You'll notice if you go through the back, the Houghton room still has quite a bit of stuff in it. That's because the installation project is still underway, and also the air conditioners are installed, but we're waiting on the electrician. So that's an update on all of the work that is happening. And you've already noticed the beautiful stone wall and work outside, and several other things. And it's all in the bulletin, right? So other announcements are in the bulletin, except for Ellie, who's going to tell us about
Hi, Tilden. The Guilford Fair food booth, which I've been announcing the last couple weeks. There's still plenty of food items to sign up and donate. And there's also sign up for volunteers. So please sign up if you can, and I'll also have the list downstairs after the service.
And Ellie has talked me through all of the responsibilities. Who knew she did all of these things? But we printed out the mid-year giving statements, and I have them all with me in the office. I'll be down at coffee hour. If you'd like to stop by and get one from me, that would be nice, so I don't have to mail them to you. And if you forget, don't worry, I'll pop them in the mail this week. Thank you.
And for those of you who don't know Patty, that's Patty Meyer, our church administrator. Yeah. Any birthdays to celebrate today? Yes, Mary.
Well, my birthday is next week, but since we're not going to be here.
Oh, good. 63. What day? August 30th. Okay, so Mary is here. So Lucy and then Jim.
My granddaughter Emma will be 11 on Tuesday.
Emma, 11 on Tuesday. This is granddaughter, Jim.
Pat had a birthday last Friday.
Pat. All right, on Friday. So that means we got 47? Yeah, great. Let's see, that's a prime number too, isn't it? Let's see, we got lots here. We got, yes, Janishka.
My twin sister will be 63 on the 20th.
Whoa. Okay, we got 3 in the congregation. Yeah. Grandpa John? Great, 75 today. And Mary Lila.
My number 2 grandson had a birthday last week. So 29, maybe.
Okay, Mary Lila's grandson. And his name? Brandon. Okay. Well, it's a great group of folks to... Oh, sorry. They're in the glare of the light over there. There's a lot of noise and I didn't hear any of that. Uncle Doug.
Today.
Today. Wow, good. Uncle Doug today. All right. Oh, and Connie. Sam and Peter. 23. Sam and Peter. Amazing. Okay. Well, let's sing. Happy birthday, we love you. Happy birthday, and may all your dreams come true. When you blow out the candles, one light stays aglow. It's the love light in your eyes wherever you go.
And that love light is not only in our eyes, but in our hearts. I ask you to rest in peace and meditation while we bring representation of that light forward. Our call to worship this morning is from Psalm 67. May God be gracious to us and bless us and shine upon us, that God's way may be known upon earth, God's saving power among all nations. Let the peoples praise you, O God, let all the peoples praise you. Let the nations be glad and sing for joy, for you judge the peoples with equity and guide the nations upon the earth. Let the peoples praise you, O God. Let all the peoples praise you. The earth has yielded its increase. God, our God, has blessed us. May God continue to bless us, that all the ends of the earth receive the Lord. Our opening hymn is number 372, Diverse in Culture, Nation, Race. I invite you to stand. Please be seated. Let us bow in preparation. Oh God, there are times, too frequently it seems, that we fail to express your love. We do too much or too little, we stop listening, we forget to pay attention, we say the wrong words. So now we take responsibility for those situations and acknowledge them silently to you. Eternal God, you are present with us throughout our lives when we hurt others as well as when others hurt us. May we learn through your examples to live together in unity, that in all we do we may sing your praises now and forever. Amen.
I am alone and I am searching, hungering for answers in my time. I am balanced at the brink of wisdom. I'm impatient to see the signs. I move forward with my senses open. Imperfection be my crime. In humility I will listen. We're all swimming to the other side. We are living in the great big river. We are washed by the very same rain. We are swimming in the stream together. Some in power and some in pain. We can worship this ground we walk on, church in the things that we live beside. Living spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side. On this journey through thoughts and feelings, finding intuition, my head, my heart, I am gathering the tools together. I'm impatient to do my part. I move forward with my senses open. Imperfection be my crime. Loving lessons that I will follow. We're all swimming to the other side. We are living in the great big river. We are washed by the very same rain. We are swimming in the stream together. Some in power and some in pain. We can worship this ground we walk on, cherishing the things that we live beside. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side. When we get there, we'll discover all of the gifts we've been given to share have been with us since life's beginning, and we never noticed they were there. We can balance at the brink of wisdom, never recognizing that we've arrived. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side. We are living in the great big river. We are washed by the very same rain. We are swimming in the stream together. Some in power and some in pain. We can worship this ground we walk on, cherishing the beings that we live beside. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side.
I'd like to invite the children to come forward. Well, good morning. It's nice to see you here today. I don't know a lot of your names, but I've seen your faces, and it's great to see them here this morning. I'd like you to help me with something. How do you finish this sentence? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. You've all heard that before then, right? Have there been instances or times when someone said something to you that actually hurt? Even though it was just words? Maybe lots of times, yeah. Okay, well, hold that thought for a minute, and then I want to share a couple of things that I brought, and we'll get back to that in a second. Would you like to help? Just stand up here. And take that out and just hold it up high. Hold that up. Hold those up so everybody can see what you have. You have asparagus, and you have sandwich cookies. Okay, both of these are good to eat, right? Yeah, sure. So, would you like to eat any of these? Either of these? You've never had asparagus, so you might want to try it. Great. And what about the cookies? They're more of a dessert thing, she says. Okay. So which of these, even if you've never tried it, and even if one is more of a dessert thing, is one of them better for you than the other? Yeah, which one is better for you? The asparagus. Yeah. Okay, clearly you don't need to be here for a food lesson because you know those sorts of things. So one is better for you. Does that mean this is not so good for you? It might even be bad for you if you eat too much? Yeah. Everything in moderation. Okay, that's a good place to start. So cookies first, asparagus second would be moderation in my mind. So if you eat something that's bad, does it make you a bad person? No. Just like eating something that's good for you doesn't make you a good person, right? Right. So I wanted to share this because this is similar to something that Jesus said. He was meeting with people in his own time, and they were arguing about traditions and how you wash food and how you prepare your food and what foods you eat and all that sort of thing. And Jesus said, it doesn't matter. None of that matters. What matters is not the food that you eat and what goes into your mouth, but what comes out of your mouth. And what comes out of your mouth are words, right? And so why is that important, what comes out of your mouth being more important? Any ideas? Yeah, go ahead. Because words can hurt. And words can hurt because when they hurt, they come from a heart that's hurting as well. A heart that's maybe kind of mean. So if Jesus is saying that if we really follow his teachings, our heart gets better and our words get better as well. Okay? So thank you for holding these, and let's say a quick prayer before you go down. Lord, we ask that you help us to listen to your stories, the stories of Jesus, and that those stories will help us to have a good heart and good words from our hearts. Amen. The hymn is 227.
Hi everyone, nice to see all of your faces today. Okay, our first lesson is from Genesis 45, 1 through 15. Then Joseph could no longer control himself before all those who stood by him. And he cried out, "Send everyone away from me." So no one stayed with him when Joseph made himself known to his brothers. And he wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard it, and the household of Pharaoh heard it. Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph. Is my father still alive?" But his brothers could not answer him. So dismayed were they at his presence. Then Joseph said to his brothers, "Come closer to me." And they came closer. He said, "I am your brother, Joseph, who you sold into Egypt. And now do not be distressed or angry with yourselves because you sold me here. For God has sent me before you to preserve life. For the famine has been in these lands for 2 years, and there are 5 more years in which there will be neither plow nor harvest. God sent me before you to preserve for you a remnant on earth, and to keep alive for you many survivors. And so it was not you who sent me here, but God. He has made me a father to Pharaoh, and lord of all his house, and ruler over all of Egypt. Hurry and go up to my father and say to him, 'Thus says your son Joseph, God has made me lord of all of Egypt. Come down to me, do not delay. You shall settle in the land of Goshen, and you shall be near me. you and your children and your children's children, as well as your flocks, your herds, and all that you have. I will provide for you there, since there are 5 more years of famine to come, so that you and your household and all that you have will not come to poverty. And now your eyes and the eyes of my brother Benjamin see that it is my own mouth that speaks to you. You must tell my father how greatly I am honored in Egypt, and all that you have seen. Hurry and bring my father down here." Then he fell upon his brother Benjamin's neck and wept, while Benjamin wept upon his neck. And he kissed all his brothers and wept upon them. And after that, his brothers talked with him. Our second lesson is Matthew 15, 10 through 28. Then he called the crowd to him and said to them, "Listen and understand. It is not what goes into the mouth that defiles the person, but it is what comes out of the mouth that defiles." Then the disciples approached and said to him, "Do you know that the Pharisees who took offense when they heard what you said?" He answered, "Every plant that my heavenly Father has not planted will be uprooted. Let them alone. They are blind guides of the blind, and if one blind person guides another, they will fall into a pit." But Peter said to him, "Explain this parable to us." Then he said, "Are you also still without understanding? Do you not see that whatever goes into the mouth enters the stomach and goes into the sewer? But what comes out of the mouth proceeds from the heart, and this is what defiles. For out of the heart come evil intentions, murder, adultery, fornication, theft, false witness, slander. These are what defile a person, but to eat with unwashed hands does not defile." Jesus left that place and went away to the district of Tyre and Sidon. Just then, a Canaanite woman from that region came out and started shouting, "Have mercy on me, Lord, Son of David. My daughter is tormented by a demon." But he did not answer her at all. And his disciples came and urged him, saying, "Send her away, for she keeps shouting after us." He answered, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel." But she came and knelt before him, saying, "Lord, help me." He answered, "It is not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs." She said, "Yes, Lord, yet even the dogs eat the crumbs from their master's table." Then Jesus answered her, "Woman, great is your faith. Let it be done for you as your wishes." And her daughter was healed instantly. Thank you.
May the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable to you, O Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. I was almost thrown out of Egypt. The situation was that I was a teacher. I was with a group of about 12 people, 4 men, 4 women. We were volunteers teaching English at a school in Cairo, a girls' school that was run by the Christian church. And the Christians, you probably know, are a minority in a Muslim country like Egypt. And We were surprised one day to walk to our classes and to our school office and find everything in confusion. Students were upset, teachers were upset, the administration was running around, strange people were in the school. We came to understand that someone the day before had sent a message to the newspaper, and an article had been printed that accused a male teacher at our school of verbally abusing students with a lesson of a poem in his class. Now, the thing was that all of our curriculum and all the books we used were sanctioned by the government. So how this could have happened was a mystery to us. But in fact, the newspaper had printed the exact replica of the page that had the poem. It was about a school picnic and children going off and a boy and a girl having a kiss. And that was seen as very offensive, and yet the teacher clearly had done nothing wrong. The teacher was not me, by the way. But that didn't make it easy for anyone who was a male teacher at an all-girls school. So we were very afraid that we would be thrown out. And it turned out that the Arabic translation next to the English words on the page were not accurate. And the story was not accurate. And even though we worried about this for several months, we did not have to leave the country, but we did have to leave the city. We left the school and we were sent to different schools around the country, and that was kind of a way to let us stay and help out and make the problem go away. And what really struck me about this so much, besides the fear that we felt at the time, was that it really didn't matter what was true. What was said had caused the damage had been done. Later we discovered that there must have been a parent who didn't get their child in the school. It was a very competitive school to get into, and so this was their revenge, I guess. But at the time I thought, that sort of thing would never happen in the United States, where free society, we have easy access to information. Surely that would counteract any lies that might come up. But I continued to think this way until like the last 24 months or so during our election process and the politics, the way they've continued and been conducted ever since. And so it seems to me that we're having trouble talking. Now we're confronted daily with fake news, alternative facts, and name-calling, all words intended to hurt just as much as sticks and stones might hurt. And once a lie or something untruthful is said, the damage is done. The confrontation in Charlottesville last weekend between white supremacists and counter-demonstrators started with words. It escalated, it became violent, people were injured, and one person died. The week before that, we listened to threats and verbal sparring from leaders in North Korea and the United States, which might still bring a real confrontation closer to reality. We think we need to talk tough, but in fact we're having trouble talking in ways that reconcile differences, resolve issues, and lead to real solutions. And of course it happens locally too. I remember at a Guilford town meeting several years ago, we spent about 45 minutes debating an increase of about $3,000 in the town budget to the Rescue Inc. contract. Rescue is the local ambulance service. And that came to an increase, I figured, maybe of about $1.50 per household. Yet people were really hot about that issue. It was quite a debate. And why? Because when Rescue made their proposal, they said they would not provide any service in town at all unless their entire increase was voted in. People, of course, felt threatened. They nearly voted it down, all because of the words of Rescue's proposal, which they could have made a different way, but in fact their request was nearly dead on arrival. He said, she said, there are threats, allegations, rumors, a war of words. We can't tell who's right or who started it. After all, there are bad people on both sides. And yes, it's only words, but is anybody less hurt? I talked with Nancy, my wife, about this topic for today, and she said, sticks and stones? "Come on, Brian, everybody knows words hurt. You're preaching to the choir." I said to her, "Well, it's summer, people on vacation. I'm glad to have the choir here." Actually, there are lots of people here today, and I thank you all for coming, but she was right. I know people in this room don't use their words like stones to incite violence. But I hope we can think today about what's going on when our words cause harm, and also consider some ways to use our words constructively in very tough situations. It turns out that when words hurt, it's not only our feelings that are damaged. An article in the New York Times back in July, middle of July, had the title, "When is Speech Violence? Brain Science Distinguishes Verbal Abusiveness from Mere Offensiveness." It said in a very short part, it said, "Words can have a powerful effect on your nervous system. Certain types of adversity, even those involving no physical contact, can make you sick, alter your brain, even kill neurons, and shorten your life. Your body's immune system includes little proteins called pro-inflammatory cytokines that cause inflammation when you're physically injured. Then under certain conditions, these cytokines themselves can cause physical illness. And what are those conditions? One of them is chronic stress." End quote, but I would add chronic stress from things like verbal abuse, put-downs, bullying, and so on. It wasn't until I was working at an organization that helps people with developmental disabilities that I understood the full impact that the wrong words can have. There, people with disabilities and those who advocated for them were very sensitive to this issue. And they knew that the way they show respect to one person becomes an example for others to follow. And so the staff who supported folks with disabilities worked hard to find meaningful jobs for them and homes of their own choosing. And their actions really showed me the power of words. They referred to people by name and not by their disability. They talked about a person's interests and not their diagnosis. And they focused on a person's skills and not all the failings they had. And all of this led to respect, to empowerment, to a place for these people in the community. In fact, they were making a point to be politically correct. But unfortunately, being politically correct has suddenly become a political hot potato. And some people think it doesn't allow them to say what's on their mind. They say, "It's my First Amendment right to say whatever I want." But I really think that being politically correct, whether it's our speech or our actions, is really about being respectful, listening to how others want to be treated and following their wishes. It's how we'd like to be treated. It's how we'd like to be treated as equals. And contrary to what we tell children about sticks and stones and name-calling, we know implicitly that words can be violent and can lead to violence. We tell each other, don't talk about politics or religion in the workplace, two things that are very important in our lives. Be polite, don't make waves. We're worried about upsetting the social order, and as a result, we can't really talk about the social issues that are important to us. We are having trouble talking. Is there ever physical violence that is not preceded by verbal violence? This is a question I've been asking myself. I'm not sure of the answer, but I think it's kind of rare. Violence usually starts with words and then it escalates. And whether it's kids on the playground or politicians on their soapbox, violence starts from the heart. It morphs into words and builds to broken bones. Acts of terrorism might not fit this pattern, but terrorism by its nature is random, and I'm not sure that terrorists have to learn, well, I am also sure that terrorists have to learn how to be violent. And I'm sure that there was someone somewhere who used hate-filled words from a hate-filled heart to teach them. May the meditations of all of our hearts produce words from our mouths that are acceptable in your sight. Today we learned in the scripture lesson that Jesus often had trouble talking, or that is, his talking got him into trouble. Instead of validating the Pharisees and their traditions, he said, it's not what goes into your mouth that defiles a person, but what comes out of the mouth that defiles. And the disciples said, "Look out, Jesus, the authorities are offended by your words." But Jesus replied, "Don't worry about those guys. They're blind to the truth, and you won't get very far if you follow them." Then he went on to say, "Don't you see that whatever goes into the mouth enters the stomach and goes out into the sewer? But what comes out of the mouth proceeds from the heart. And this is what defiles. For out of the heart come evil intentions, murder, adultery, fornication, theft, false witness, and slander. These are what defile a person." Today I wonder if Jesus might say, it doesn't matter whether you're feeding off of fake news or trusted news. What I care about are the words that come from your mouth, because your words tell me what's in your heart. And when we have trouble talking, perhaps we can ask what kind of heart the words are coming from. The scripture for today also gives some examples of that heart, the kind of heart that Jesus would like us to have. In the Old Testament lesson, you'll recall that Joseph's brothers sold him as a slave. Then years later, after having gained favor and power in Pharaoh's court, they met again. And you'd think that there would be a certain amount of animosity between them. And in fact, his brothers are hesitant to meet with Joseph or even come close to him. Imagine everyone's surprise when Joseph does not speak ill of his brothers. He forgives them instead because of what's in his heart. He gives us an example of a generous, loving heart. He chooses to build his relationship with his brothers rather than to make it worse. We also heard today a description of a meeting between Jesus and a Canaanite woman. And Jesus rejects that woman. And at first I was really puzzled by this. Why wasn't Jesus kinder towards the woman? Here she begs him to cure her daughter, but Jesus compares her to a dog. It doesn't sound like the Jesus that I know and love. So I asked my theological advisor, well, it's my father, and he's a retired minister. Dad knows everything. So I asked him about this, and he said, he said you could probably think about everything that Jesus said or did as a way to deliver a message, either to his disciples or a message to the people like us who might hear him later. So in this instance, Jesus initially responds to the woman from Canaan the way the disciples or a typical Jew of that time would, with disgust. Then he adds a surprising twist. He commends her faith and instantly heals her daughter. In this action, I believe he's demonstrating the type of heart that he wants us to have. A heart that may not start out perfect, but quickly recognizes its mistake and does an about-face to care for others and speak the truth. The choir sang just a moment ago, "We are living neath the great big dipper. We're washed by the very same rain. We're swimming in the stream together, some in power and some in pain." I think this speaks to the fundamental unity of our humanity. Ultimately, we have the same aspirations, and though we don't always recognize it right away, we need each other to complete our spiritual journey. So maybe it does sound naive, but I really do believe that it makes a difference what we say, even if we are the choir. What disturbs me most, though, is that I know what the truth is, but I'm also certain that there are people who are just as certain that their view is true and mine is fake. So I think it's fair to ask who has truth and whose facts are fake. I'd like to suggest a test for truthfulness. It's something like this. Are words being used like sticks and stones? Does somebody get hurt? Now, again, that sounds maybe simple, but I think it's valid with two assumptions. One being that we should not hurt other people. And the second being that we can always find a way to say a tough message with kind words. I think most Christians would agree with the first, that we should not hurt other people. But the second's a bit harder, that we can say hard things with kind words. Before going into a confrontation, my friend Mary would always ask herself, what am I about to say? And will what I'm about to say make our relationship stronger, or will it tear our relationship down? She was a bit like Joseph and his thoughts with his brothers. Will my words do more good than harm? That's straightforward enough, but does that mean you can't criticize someone? Actually, I think there's no reason that you can't say what's on your mind and be nice about it and still be respectful. What would it be like if you could talk about a hot issue or give someone tough advice, a critical feedback, or even a reprimand in such a way that they thanked you for it afterwards? Is that even conceivable? Nancy and I have a friend, Liz, who works at Common Ground. Thank you, Nancy. High Five. Oh, why didn't I write that down here? She works at High Five, and you may know that in town that's an organization that has ropes courses and rock climbing, and they teach people to work better in teams. But she herself specializes in teaching other teachers to use these methods. And one of the first things she always teaches is safety, and how even no matter what the structure is they're working on, to always listen to her instructions first before using the equipment. And she was with a group of people, and they were standing around I think probably just a low beam on the ground, maybe this high off the ground, like a 2x4, 2x6 or something that you could walk across. And after she was finished explaining how to stay safe and always follow her instructions, a man got and went and stepped forward from the group, jumped up on the balance beam and did this little dance across and jumped down. In direct contradiction to everything she had just said. And so she called him aside away from the group, and she said to him, I want your team to be successful and to learn how to deliver the safest, most effective program for your students back at your middle school. I need your support. Are you with me on this? He agreed. They finished the day. Afterwards, he went to her and said, I discipline kids all day. I'm the principal at our middle school. You disciplined me, and I felt good about it. Help me understand how you did this. I want to do that with my students. Think about it. He actually felt better after having been disciplined. And imagine how that lesson that the principal learned could change the lives of all the students in his school, not to mention other educators. The irony that we have in talking about trouble, or there is irony, yet we have more tools for communication than we ever have had before. There's a psychologist, Marshall Rosenberg, who wrote a book called Nonviolent Communication a few years back. And his theory about nonviolent communication begins by recommending that we separate observations from our feelings. This means being specific about what we don't like and then naming the emotions that it produces for us. So a simple statement like, you are selfish, becomes more specific, such as, when I see you take a large piece of cake, I feel worried and embarrassed because I think there won't be enough for all our guests. So, of course, there's a lot more to nonviolent communication than this, but the basic concept is to reduce judgments about other people by focusing on specific actions and the feelings that generates for us. So in this instance, I'm not accusing you of selfishness. I observe you take a big piece of cake, and I share my reaction to it, and we have a conversation afterwards. Without judgment, no one has to be defensive. Without judgment, words are less hurtful. Without judgment, we can talk about important issues and resolve differences in a more peaceful manner. I found that to use nonviolent communication, I have to mentally pause, examine my own feelings, and try and figure out why I'm really upset. I have to stop see what's in my heart before I can find the right words to share. As an example, when our daughter Tilden was a teenager, she wanted to be out late with friends one time, and my initial reaction to her was to say, no, to put tight restrictions on her movements. What will you be doing? Call me when you get there. Tell me who you'll be with. Call me before you come home. Well, since she's here, I'll leave her reactions to your imagination. But in that instance, when I was able to examine what was going on in my heart, I realized that I was actually afraid and worried about her safety. Once I recognized this, I was able to share it with her and reinforce that, in fact, I did trust her, but that I just didn't want to worry. We were able to have a non-judgmental conversation about what each of us needed when she was out with friends. Now, I'm not sure how to have a conversation that shares differing views about outrageous things politicians are doing or not doing, or what you can say about Charlottesville or Barcelona that names the atrocities without throwing gasoline on the flames. Saying something that's civil, though, doesn't always seem to be enough. But I think that's the only way to eliminate judgments that make people defensive and still keep the dialogue open. We certainly can't solve problems if we stop talking. Sticks and stones may break my bones. I don't know. I think maybe we should change it to something like, sticks and stones may break my bones, but good words will surely heal me. As bad things come up, we don't have to have trouble talking. Instead, we can keep a steady watch on our heart and let God put in a word or two. God is still speaking. God is calling out to our hearts that are hungry to be fed upon the words of Jesus, hearts that speak God's truth. Amen.
Friends in Christ, God invites us to hold the needs of our sisters and brothers as dear to us as our own needs. Loving our neighbors as ourselves, we offer our thanksgivings and our petitions on behalf of the church and the world.
For those living in fear of war and oppression, may they find words that inspire peace and hope rather than incite violence.
Where there is poverty, hunger, and homelessness, may we offer real empowerment and independence rather than empty words that enable dependence.
Where hatred and division are fueled by historical wrongs, may our words promote the future rather than perpetuate the past.
Whenever we encounter people who are different based on culture, religion, race, sexual orientation, ableness, or other qualities, may we use words that invite rather than exclude people from our community.
For our local, national, and world leaders, may their words diffuse tensions rather than escalate tough situations.
Where there is confusion, misinformation, fake news, and alternative facts, may we use words that enlighten rather than obscure your truth, and words that clarify rather than cloud the issues.
In all situations, may we find words that build rather than break our relationship to you and to our sisters and brothers.
Loving God, open our ears to hear your word and draw us closer to you, that the whole world may be one with you as you are one with us. In Jesus Christ, our Lord.
Amen.
Amen.
Could you join hands for the Lord's Prayer? Our Father, as we bring our offerings from our joyful hearts, I invite you to sing the hymn 367, Break Not the Circle. May they represent our speech and our actions in your world for good. Amen. I invite you to pass the peace to one another. Our closing hymn is 391, God Made from One Blood. 391. At some point this week, we will probably have trouble talking. I'm pretty sure that I will. So, Lord, write your words in our hearts so that the words of our mouths match the meditations of our hearts. O Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen.
saved a wretch like me, that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found.